My name is Michaela McShane, and it is my privilege to welcome you to the Startup NASA Feature Series. We look forward to hearing from J&F Alliance, and we hope you enjoy the presentation. Before we get started, I'd like to point out that your microphones will be muted throughout the presentation, so if you have any questions, please type them into the chat box, and we'll answer them during the live Q&A session at the end. This monthly series provides an opportunity for NASA technology-inspired startup companies to share their stories, including how they got involved with NASA and where they are in the development of their product or service. NASA's Technology Transfer Program ensures that innovations developed for exploration and discovery are broadly available to the public, and our Tech Transfer Expansion Program augments that mission to include a focus on entrepreneurial innovation and strategic partnerships to help accelerate commercialization. We invite you to visit the NASA Technology Transfer website for more information about available licensing opportunities and other initiatives. Thank you for joining us today. It is my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Jamarcus King. Mr. Jamarcus King is a creative technologist with over 5 years of experience in managing, developing, and overseeing web projects, mobile apps, and other digital media experiences. During his tenure at Georgia Tech Research Institute and Redstone Arsenal, Mr. King was fortunate enough to work with some of the greatest computer scientists and engineers in the industry. His experience with the industry motivates him to pursue a deeper understanding of technology trends and their real-world applications, which has helped him become a leading expert in the field. And with that, I'd like to welcome Jamarcus to share his story. Jamarcus, I think you might be muted.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to listen to what we have to say as far as our experience with dealing with the NASA Technology Transfer Program and how we've been able to work closely together as a team to create a product with this technology. I would like to first start off by saying thank you to John Muniz, who's on the call with us today. Little backstory, at the time we got introduced to this technology, we ran into a scientist at the time by the name of Dr. Alan Pope. We were at the Ferguson lab there, Jefferson Labs, which is one of the federal labs here in Virginia. And that's where we met Dr. Alan Pope. And during that visit, he came in and we gave him a overview of our capability as it comes to virtual reality and augmented reality, application development. And he immediately was like, "Oh my God, Jamarcus, what you guys are doing, I believe I have a technology that could integrate well with what you're doing." And we were like, "Really? How so?" So that's when he introduced us to the patents that our company then proceeded to obtain a license for. That is also how we met John Muniz, Dr. John Muniz, who's on the line with us now. And at that time, John was a student living in Portugal, and we were able to obtain a J-1 visa to get John into the United States to work as an intern here at our company in Hampton, Virginia. And we had a wonderful person that was able to assist us that worked for the National Institute of Aerospace that helped us to sponsor John into the country to allow this research to take place. And I'll let John tell you his story real quick before I proceed. So John, do you want to take a quick moment and introduce yourself?
Yeah, nice meeting you, everyone. I am now a UX research scientist at J&F Alliance. Part of it because of that experience that we have trying to work with this technology. I met Dr. Pope back in Lisbon. That was back in 2016 in a conference of physiological computing, which is the area that involves the use of human body signals to create inputs in different computer systems. And we have a discussion about our research. At that time, he mentioned to me that there was one specific company interested in pursuing some of the patents or licensing some of the patents that he was creating. And we just started a bureaucratic process of getting me into the States. It was my first time in the States. And when I arrived to J&F in Hampton, Virginia, was 2018. And I was about to finish my PhD in human-computer interaction. And I think the mission that I have at the time was literally trying to integrate The patents that J&F had licensed at that time that were using some of the most advanced and sophisticated concepts that Dr. Aleppo was putting on his patents on his inventions.
So, with that said, and we could take a little time. That research project lasted, well, I think about 10 weeks here. We were able to have John in the country, and we made great achievements in that short period of time. We were able to create a working application that we were then able to work with our local law enforcement officers to help us to fine tune and basically get that application ready for us to commercialize. We were able to obtain a lot of great data by working closely with them, and that gave us a really good working foundation to start from. Fast forward a little bit, as you can recall, John just mentioned that was in 2018 when he came. Now, I would tell you that the licensing process I was amazed at how easy it was for us to obtain those NASA patents. The office here, they were very instrumental and very helpful in assisting us with the paperwork. Um, I would say from the time we started the process, from the time we finished, took about 4 months before we had the actual licenses in hand. That gave us the permission and right to iterate and work with these applications. But it was a very good process. I definitely commend the Technology Transfer Office for all of their great efforts because, that's what it's designed for. They really wanted us to gain access to this technology to try our best to put it to good use. And that's exactly what we did. So I definitely want to give a shout out and a thank you to the Tech Transfer Office for all of their support and assistance in that process. It was not as difficult as we thought it was going to be. It was nothing like the horror stories that we heard. It was a very smooth, seamless process, and I think everyone on our team would agree with my statement on that. Now, with that though comes another set of challenges. You have to be ready when you license this technology, right? So we got the technology, we got the licenses, and then it's like, now what? And I think for small businesses, I want to point out that it's very important to have a very good follow-on plan. I mean, you need to start thinking about marketing. You need to start thinking about funding. You need to start thinking about the development process. What other additional resources you're going to need to ensure that your commercialization efforts are successful. And these are some of the things we kind of, and I will admit, we were very weak in. We were very excited to get them. Everyone was optimistic about what we could create with them. However, there was a whole nother strategy to this process that we had not, um, thought out clearly. So what I tell people today is if you're interested in trying to license technology from any of the federal labs or NASA or any one of the other government agencies, be sure to have a really good market strategy, your go-to plan, and how you plan to get the development done. One thing that I would say is that once we finally got a plan in place and a plan together, we started the process, even though during that initial period, that initial 10-week period, we were able to accomplish a lot. We had access to NASA interns as well that really helped us to define what we wanted this product to be, what we wanted to get out of it. And we were able to have interactions with them. So they were able to come over to our facility, strategize with us, brainstorm, and come and give us the foundational information that we really needed to try to get this product developed. Okay. I will say that you really need to, okay, let's start with funding. Okay, now that we had the idea, we had the concept, we know what we needed to do, but it was like, man, when you're a small business and you're running your day-to-day company, it was very difficult to allocate resources and pull resources from projects that we have paid clients on. And then, because if you think about it, when you license this technology, it's R&D, it's research and development, right? So if you don't have resources, not just funding, the manpower to continue the development, it can become very challenging. So if you ask us today, like, wow, like, why isn't this product being commercially sold already? Because it's a great product, and what's going on in our country today is very needed, and will be very useful. And when we later on, we'll get to what we were able to create with it. We'll show you that we have a slide presentation that'll talk about the product that we developed. But those are the type of things that I would ask you to think about. Um, John, you have anything extra you want to add there? You're on mute, John.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to briefly show some of the things that we actually had, as you mentioned, bringing some of those NASA interns, bringing, having the same table, the inventor, Dr. Alan Pope, some of the NASA fellows that were also working with Dr. Alan Pope, and also some of the interns that were there, like sitting, you know, having a conversation, coffee, having brainstorming sessions to kind of like came out with an interesting idea and a feasible idea to be accomplished in 10 weeks. That was, one of the most insightful and interesting things that I've done during my entire career as a research scientist. And this is, again, just some of the pictures that we have around the process and how, we took it was literally very open in a way that we want everyone to participate in our process. It's not like, we're coming as research scientists to actually dictate what needs to be done, but I think we understood that the company had like a specific need of using this patents for somehow improving some of the technologies that they were already developing, and to have some specific added value to it. And that was exactly what we did, and I was happily also surprised to see all the support from not only the inventor itself, Dr. Alan, but also from some of the people from NASA Langley, Chad, Kelly, and some of the other interns that were coming as well to participate.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for adding that piece, John. I forgot about that photo. So puts a smile on my face to see that old picture. So I think what we'll do at this time, let's jump into our presentation, and let's kind of show the people what we were able to
Okay.
develop with the technology. So at the time, so J&F Alliance Group is a firm, we're a technology firm that specializes in virtual reality, augmented reality, and mixed reality application development. This particular technology that we license is around biofeedback technology. So we were like, man, it would be really cool if we could take biofeedback technology and integrate that into a virtual or an augmented reality experience. And that's exactly what we're able to do. So what does all of that mean? What that means is that when you are immersed in a virtual environment, or we built out an application or a scenario experience that allows your human signals to control what happens in that virtual environment. After many meetings, many brainstorming sessions, we decided to start with military use cases and law enforcement. And as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot going on in our country around law enforcement, lack of training, and things like that. So we feel like this technology right here can be a really good solution to help to close that gap when it comes to like law enforcement and military training. Um, the team that led this, as you saw there, was Dr. Alan Pope, who still works with us to this day. Dr. Alan Pope is amazing. He's now considered a distinguished research associate at NASA Langley. And I would tell you too, that makes the process, that made all the difference in the world, because we actually had a scientist that created this technology eager and willing to work with us. I mean, getting down in the trenches with us in the brainstorming sessions, giving us really good ideas, educating us on challenges and roadblocks they had when they developed this technology, and then advising us on solutions to help us and assist us in ensuring that we're successful with our adaptation of this technology into our current capabilities. So Dr. Alan Pope has truly been a blessing to and a very instrumental figure to the success of where we are today with this product. You see myself there, Jamarcus King, who is the Chief Operation Officer for J&F Alliance Group. And as you see now, John is now also a member of our team. He's our UX research scientist. John was in academia. So when John graduated with his PhD, John, you left that part out. When you graduated with your PhD, you continued his research as a professor at a university in Canada. Why don't you talk about that for a second?
Yeah, so I think we all were very excited about what was happening at that time and all the ways that we managed to somehow deploy an MVP, a functional prototype combining biofeedback technologies and adaptive biofeedback technologies coupled with virtual reality training simulators. When I came back to Portugal, I finished my PhD. I decided to pursue a little bit of more research on my specific area, but we kept this time connected, somehow doing different research also with some data that I managed to collect during those days and trying to refine some of the concepts that we have put together at that time. As Marcus mentioned, some of the ideas that at that point we were figuring out in using, or the potential use case for this combined technology or integrated technology were about how to use it as a way to facilitate the self-regulation training of things like cognitive readiness, because we were eager and checking many different articles and things that were happening in the States, where there was a clear need of an integration of a better designed training protocols to facilitate a more tailored and personalized training in the first responders.
Mm-hmm. So thank you for that, John. So with that being said, we talk about what we were able to do in that short period of time. So we ended up having to go back to the drawing board, and we really needed to strategize and come up with a game plan on how we're going to take this technology, take this working prototype that we were able to develop and commercialize it and turn it into a product that people around the world can take advantage of, whether it's law enforcement, whether it's our military, whether it's um, medical training, whether it's any type of training scenario, whether it's workforce training, understanding someone's biofeedback when they're doing a job simulation. It didn't matter. We were eager and ready to get this technology out to the world to utilize to make a difference in training, workforce development, and enhance productivity. Well, the moment we got our plan and everything in place, well, we all know what happened. COVID hit, right? So COVID was basically a 2-year setback for all of us. So during that time, we had a lot of time to kind of clean up our own backyard, really think about the solutions that we were developing. And we, of course, naturally, we came right back to our biofeedback product. And so we started brainstorming saying, hey, this thing can really be useful and beneficial to a lot of organizations. So then we started to incorporate it into our brief. And now it's to the point where almost all of our customers we talk to today want this technology as a part of our services and solutions that we provide to them. So now we fast forward a couple years, reached back out to John. It was perfect timing. John was at a point at the university after being a professor there for several years. He's like, you know what? I want to enter industry. I want to now go from the research side of it to the actual implementation and getting this, technology out there and seeing it put to good use. And same with Dr. Pope. He's like, look, I want to see this technology being used and put to good use. So that's why today, reached back out to John. John was like, hey, Jamarcus, perfect timing. I've been looking to enter industry and leave academia. Hey, I feel like the timing is perfect for this. Let's go. So with that being said, we have a whole newfound strategy and approach with this technology. And not to mention, we all know the pace of technology is very fast. So what we were doing a year ago, is almost irrelevant or obsolete in compared to what we can do today. So let alone what we were doing in 2018 when we first initially designed and developed this prototype. Right now, we have customers that already want it. So we have a new strategy and a new approach to get this technology developed to a point to make it commercially available to the public. And that's why John is back on board. That's why we have other resources that are already on board, and we've already started the process to get it commercialized. We feel that within 6 months, we'll actually be selling this product to those who feel it could be useful or beneficial to their organization.
And what I'm going to briefly show you here is basically what we did back in 2018 and how we managed to come out with a brief, specific use case for our technology. And then you probably would be able to figure out other use cases or how this might apply to your own business. So as we mentioned before, we were very much focused on Dr. Spoke's patents, which were mostly related to the use of signals as an adaptive way of providing training or as an adaptive mechanism for different interactive systems. So we took some of those concepts, we built some prototypes in more modern technologies like game engines like Unity, and we were focused on how to use data to actually drive our design process. So we got basically data from electroencephalography, EEG, the measures of brain waves, wearable BCI systems, brain-computer interfaces, and also heart rate and heart rate variability. And I'm going to briefly show you here the type of system that we created at that time. This is, again, an MVP of this family of technologies when we envision biofeedback to be used for different training scenarios. This is actually J&F Alliance facilities down in Hampton, Virginia, and those are real police officers from the local police department in Hampton that Jar Marcus and the company was actually able to connect me with. So they were coming and we were building a scenarios, a specific training scenario for target shooting. And we were connecting heart rate monitors and the EEG wearable device together with the virtual reality headset. So what you can see here is we were modulating a lot of the difficulty of the target shooting range. And that modulation was done manually initially to basically study the responses of police officers when they were going through this training. So what they were doing there is basically going through a specific training that was specifically created to move them from easy to medium to hard difficulties. And then we studied that and we created what's called a psychophysiological modeling of those participants or specific police officers with different levels of training. And after creating that model, we were able to create adaptive rules that more or less may look like this. You know, when they are achieving certain heart rate levels or certain levels of concentration, then the difficulty of the simulation will change. That means if they are actually self-regulating themselves, then the system automatically will create an adaptation so they will be able to move to the next stage, which is a stage where, for instance, they will move from having static targets to having moving targets, which is a little bit of more complex scenario for them. So we got this MVP working, and we have been iterating, and we are again ready to keep modernizing more and more this technology. That they use some of the commercially available sensors, but I would like to expand this to many different training scenarios in many other contexts. So as I mentioned before, we are using minimally intrusive signals and sensors. We're trying to do control training, which is again what J&F is specialized on, is creating this virtual reality simulations with a control scenario, and also leveraging on the patents created by Dr. Alan Pope in facilitating what's called the biocybernetic loop or the adaptive biofeedback on this. And this is mostly, I think, our differentiator factor once compared to many other companies doing training in virtual reality, Marcus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so when you think about the world of virtual reality and how, if you think back, 2015, 2014, 2015, when we first started to develop this technology, and you fast forward today, I think everyone in this meeting today can see the trend with the technology. You can see, back then it wasn't so popular. headsets were very expensive. And you fast forward to today, right now, you can walk in Best Buy and buy a headset for $199. So now the devices are becoming more consumer ready and consumer available, which is going to enhance the virtual reality industry even that much more. So now by the devices and hardware being very accessible and by creating these very unique virtual and augmented reality experiences, coupled with other integrating technology like sensors and cloud databases where you can get data in real time, we can make some very, very powerful slash portable solutions. You don't need a high powered computer anymore. The head device is the computer. So when you think of it from that standpoint, we can now create these experiences that are going to make it very easy for anyone to train. In this specific use case, we focus on law enforcement. So as John was talking about the BCI devices, the bank computer interfaces, we're talking about being able to detect an officer's stress level, their focus level, their heart rate, and by capturing all of that data, we can then find unique ways and to train the officers better. So I'm gonna give you a scenario. Let's say again, taking current events, everything that's going on in this country, whether it's an active shooter scenario or your standard traffic stop. Imagine an officer, simulating pulling somebody over for a traffic violation. And the moment that officer is going, is exercising his training and he's approaching that vehicle, if we are detecting his heart rate and stress level already going through the roof, that's an opportunity for us to say, hey, time out, you need to self-regulate because right now you're approaching a situation at a high rate of stress, um, low focus, and that could be the recipe for an outcome that no one wants to see, right? So that's how we see this technology being very useful within our local law enforcement. If we can teach, if we can make this a part of training, and if we can show and teach and train officers how to self-regulate in high stress situations, a lot of things can be prevented. We're not saying it's the end all be all. We're not saying this is the 100% solution to stop, some of the things that have been happening in this country. But what we can say is we feel very confident that this technology can help in that training process to, that can help mitigate some of the things that's been happening, right? I mean, you could take that to a whole nother scenario where we introduce an active shooter situation and, an officer's going into schools, making sure they're able to self-regulate and perform at their peak is the whole objective of this technology. We want you to perform at your peak, as long as you can to be efficient in your job. John, you got something to add?
Yeah, and I think one of the most interesting aspects of this technology is how ready VR, how trending XR, augmented and virtual reality it is right now, and how there's plenty of interesting companies and a lot of investment going on. For how, we started 3 or 4 years ago when probably the technology was not that trending as it is right now, and how you guys have been able to keep going with it, and how we have been able to get already a more mature towards, right now in this moment where we are exploring business models. We're selling biofeedback technologies integrated with virtual and augmented reality. And that's a total new challenge for me as a researcher and maybe also for Dr. Pope, because we are here dealing with, hardware, deploying hardware and software solutions. And, that's again adds to those anecdotes that we normally have as researchers when we don't necessarily think carefully on those elements when we design our systems and we evaluate our systems. But when articulated with companies like J&F, it's really a need. It's really like you need to design something that can be scaled up at some point. And I think that's the interesting connection that we managed to have and the interesting synergy that we managed to have when when I arrived to Hampton, having that research control environment lab more in Atalanta, having more like the virtual reality things that you guys were developing in J&F, and being able to fill that gap with again more agile technologies for prototyping, biofeedback, integration with VR. I think that was definitely a very interesting thing with it.
Yeah, so and to add to that, John, too, some of the feedback that we received from our law enforcement office was they were totally amazed at one, how realistic it felt when they were immersed in that virtual environment. And two, how they felt that it should definitely, this technology should definitely be a part of their standardized training and requirements. I mean, every last one of them, I mean, we had everyone from new recruits, we had instructors, police instructors, we had SWAT team, we had senior, you know, senior officers go through this scenario, and the feedback that we got from every last single one of them was, "Oh my God, this technology is game changing. We need something like this to help us stay current and relevant in our job performance. Why don't we have this technology today?" So, and to give you another scenario, imagine, let's talk about it from a workforce development standpoint. NASA was using this technology in a flight simulator. So they would put airline pilots into this flight simulator, and then they would induce all of these anomalies like birds and turbulence. And then when the pilot responded, NASA was able to track that pilot's stress level, focus level, attention level, heart rate. And then, at what point you can then start to understand the cognitive state of a pilot when certain things were introduced into that simulation. And then they took that data to help train the pilot to be relaxed, calm. You don't stress out because you just, flew through a bunch of birds. Don't stress out because the wind is creating, this crazy amount of turbulence and the plane is like feeling like it's going to fall out the sky, right? So again, we've taken that same technology and hey, now I got you in a immersed situation and you're a sailor on a ship that's gone, but you're here in the States. How can you train on that carrier when it's out to sea? We can now immerse you into that environment and help you to perform procedures, maintenance procedures, any training procedures, and now understand your cognitive state, capture that data and provide the data back to you to help you improve. So that's how this technology works in this specific scenario. Mr. Sullivan, do you want us to take questions?
Hi. Yeah, we will cut to questions now if you're ready.
Okay. Yeah, so I think that was just a general overview of,
Mhm.
the product that we developed, by integrating the NASA patents with our VR technology. We are taking that same technology and integrating them into our augmented reality and our mixed
Mhm.
reality applications. And now we're coupling that with machine learning and artificial intelligence. So as you can imagine, we're creating some very powerful solutions with this technology.
Yeah, that was a super informative presentation. Thank you both for sharing.
Yes. So we'll take questions.
Okay. So thank you everyone who submitted your questions. Feel free to continue submitting them in the chat box and we'll get to as many as we can. So first question, can you talk a little bit about the specifics of the type of license that you have and whether or not it's easy to extend it beyond the current lifespan of the license?
So we initially received what they call the NASA startup license.
Hmm.
So we created a new entity, which then allowed NASA to license that technology to that entity. And when they do that, you have 3 years. They give you 3 years, no royalty, no fees, no payments to do what you need to do to try to commercialize.
Hmm.
After 3 years, you have to start paying your license fees or your royalty fees on that technology. So we got it in 2018. In 20, and here's another thing that we found out. So because we got the technology, let's say in November Come January of that third year, your royalty fee is due, and it's due by the 31st of January of every year. And that fee is based on the patents and what you negotiated with NASA. So everybody is going to be different. But what we realized was because we got we if we didn't because we got the technology in, let's say, November, come January, those 2 or 3 months we had, it counts as the whole year of 2018. So that part we didn't understand. So we make sure anyway, whenever someone asks me that question now, I'll tell them that part of it. So it's not 3 years from the day you were, granted access to the patents. It's 3 calendar years from the year you received the patents.
Okay, thank
Mhm.
you. Let's see. What level of development was the NASA patent or proof of concept when you first licensed it? Are NASA patents in various stages of development? If you want to go ahead and answer that first part, I'll take the second part.
Yes, they are. I'll let John handle that question.
Yeah, a lot of the information that was in the patent before was some proof of concepts. They were some also theoretical concepts or envision systems that we had. So I've seen many, or I also have followed many of the different patents from Dr. Pope, and I was a big fan of his inventions even before getting to know him and before joining to J&F Alliance. So what he has is actually an amalgam of envision system, very futuristic, some of them. Also, like more things that they have prototype already in the lab, and they know they work, but sometimes we bring some other into those patterns. And sometimes they also have specific system descriptions where you can see software and hardware components that are associated to the use of biofeedback into things like games or virtual reality applications. So it's actually mixed. I, as far as I remember, John Marcus, you licensed a set of those patents. I think we're like around 6 of those patents, and we were literally exploring with Dr. Pope and George Marcus which of those patents made more sense to be integrated into the technology that we were envisioning at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we're also, and I'm currently exploring should we now go for an exclusive use rights to these patents. So you can apply for exclusivity. Of course, that royalty fee then changes. It's a higher fee now because only you and you only can now, NASA can't license their patents to no one else. So that's something we're exploring with now.
Thank you both.
Mhm.
And to quickly address the second part of the question, yes, essentially, NASA patents are at varying stages of technology readiness level, which is a metric that NASA uses internally to talk about how far along the technology is. So some things are further developed than others. Some might have prototypes. Some might be fairly early stage. So it very much depends on the technology as to what level of development it is at. Good question. You mentioned that headsets are quite accessible and affordable, but obviously your systems are more involved. What would potential costs look like for a customer to deploy a training program for its employees?
That's a bit of a tricky question. It really depends on the scope
Mm-hmm.
of what we need to do. We are actually working with several organizations right now in that aspect to where we know they want us to develop a solution with the biofeedback technology integrated into it. So we
Mm-hmm.
are now working with them now on the scope. And one of those opportunities are, that we're working on is for the entire Army. So that's a really big opportunity. And we're working with the appropriate personnel on that right now to outline what does that scope looks like, how do we deploy that, how do we scale that across the United States Army, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's something we're working on, and that's going to be completely different than working with a smaller organization, who wants to implement a training scenario and have the same biofeedback technology integrated into it. So I can't give you a set price yet as of today, but we have done pricing models around it. And we're looking at potentially kind of like a subscription model that someone can download this technology and implement it within their organization.
Mhm.
Just to
Thank
add
you.
to it, also the cost associated to different physiological sensors is constantly changing, as well as it is with the XR devices, different virtual and augmented reality devices. But that's where Jamarcus, I echo what Jamarcus said, it really depends on a specific application. A lot of those sensors, they cannot do magic. So they are basically there to measure specific responses, relaxation, attention, getting into emotions is something I would say trickier than doing it like specific psychological states. So on each of those states, they might require a different combination of sensors to actually be able to infer the status in a better way. So it's really depending on specific applications.
Hmm. Of course. Thank you both. Um, so you've talked a little bit about how you got started and the current state of the technology and your company. Where do you see this technology and your company focus going in the future?
So I think that this technology, as I mentioned earlier, coupled with machine learning and AI, I think the sky is the limit with this technology. I see many use cases. I see many organizations wanting a solution similar to this, tailored to their specific mission or job requirements. So I really see the sky's the limit with it. I really see it, continuing to grow, continuing to advance, and I see the adaption rate of it, really starting to increase over the next couple of years, especially um, with the release of all the new different headsets and everything that's hitting the market and the affordability of them. I think this technology is going to become more of a need. If you think about it, we're talking to people right now about utilizing this technology to help treat PTSD in an immersive situation. We're having conversations with organizations that have applied for grants to bring us on board to help them take this technology integrated with biofeedback to help kids on the spectrum. So I really feel like the sky is the limit with this technology, and I really see it being impactful on so many different levels, so many. So we're excited about it, and we're not going to stop. We're going to continue to iterate and try to find new solutions. And again, the whole purpose of this NASA technology is to get all of this, great technology that these scientists create and get it off the shelf and get it out into the hands of the people to be beneficial, to the world, right? So we want to help achieve that goal.
Just to add also to it, I'm coming from an applied healthcare science background. So a lot of the things I've been doing in research are actually applied to healthcare. And I think that's why we have this connection also with J&F and Jamarcus, because he mentioned, his interest in saying how to apply adaptive biofeedback technology into many of the scenarios related to post-traumatic stress disorder and autism spectrum, ADHD, and all the potential use cases that indeed Dr. Pope was applying even before J&F licensed the patents. He had patents related to the use of neurofeedback devices for doing digital therapeutics with video games for children with ADHD, and there's some products already being commercialized out of it. So we really think that there's many different applications that we can apply for and use this technology for.
Yeah, and to piggyback off that, I mean, think about we're having conversations right now with in areas of sports. Think about this technology being used to measure a player's cognitive state to help them shoot free throws better. It doesn't necessarily have to be them shooting a weapon. It could be them shooting a basketball. So we're talking, medical use cases. We're talking like workforce development use cases. We're talking sports related use cases that's why I'm saying this technology is going to be around for a very long time. And just to be clear, a lot of we're developing our application in a way that it could be useful to, I'm not going to say every commercially available headset on the market, but we're going to try to tailor this to where it could be very agnostic, as best as we can make it to the different headsets hitting the market.
Thank you both. I think we have time for one more question. And I would like to ask, what advice would you offer to someone who's interested in licensing NASA developed technology, or maybe starting a company around NASA technology now that you've gone through the process?
I would say, and I mentioned it earlier, is make sure you have a strategy drawn out. And if you're a small business already, make sure you think about the fact that, hey, how can I use my existing resources, whether it's manpower, equipment, and if so, how does that impact my current day-to-day operation? I think that's very important, because although we were very excited and hyped up about, man, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, but then we have this customer who's paying for a project that I'm like, well, I can't pull my people off to do that. I got to make sure, we're meeting this customer's needs and that they're happy. So I would say having that strategy drawn out, ensuring that you have a plan for, funding, making sure you know what equipment or other resources you need. And then I think from there, make sure you foster a relationship with NASA. I think the reason we've been able to be so successful with it is the fact that we have to this day, open dialogue and communication with the NASA scientists that created these patents. Now, that's not to say that every patent you're going to be able to go talk to the scientists that created it. However, you should be able to make contact with someone from that office or someone within NASA that can help guide you through that process, and that you can keep up to date. So because we kept everyone involved up to date on our progress, we were able to um, make the NASA spinoff magazine. And that's because we had constant communication with Dr. Pope and our tech transfer office. And because they were aware of what we were doing, we were able to make the NASA spinoff magazine and be published in that magazine. So that was a great accomplishment for us and our team as well. And so that's the advice that I would say. Make sure you have a solid plan. You know what resources you need to make it happen. That you have funding secured. If you don't have funding secured, we didn't know at the time, but there are ways you can go out and try to, gain funding for your project as well. And those ways are not through NASA; they're external. But there are a lot of resources out there that can assist you with trying to obtain funding to commercialize whatever technology that you're trying to commercialize.
All right. Thank you both so much. That was a really excellent presentation, and we really appreciate you taking the time to come and speak with us on this platform. And I know that it was very informative based on the sheer volume of questions we received. So I'm sorry to those of you whose questions we didn't get a chance to answer. We will share your questions with Marcus and John, and hopefully they are able to follow up with you separately. And if you have program-specific questions, go to the Tech Transfer website and reach out to us directly. And with that being said, thank you both again for taking the time to do this. Thank you everyone for attending, and we'll see you
Michaela,
on the next one.
can I say something real quick? I
Of
just want to
course.
point out that I see a not a question but a comment to John Muniz directly from Mr. Jackie Zell, who was the CEO of Zeltech and now the executive chairman. And he was a very instrumental part of our success as well, because Zeltech was and still is a mentor company to our firm, to J&F Alliance Group. We have an official mentor protege agreement in place through the SBA. And we also have a joint venture company with Zeltech. And at that time, even Mr. Zell was very critical in making some calls that assisted us in getting John in the country to help us develop this prototype. So I just want to, acknowledge his comment to John, and he remembers him, and he's currently retired now. but I just wanted to make sure John got that comment.
Awesome. Well,
Hope-
thank you both,
hope to
and
be-
thank you.
Hope to be able to see everyone anytime soon.
Yep.
Thank
yep.
you, Michaela, as well for
Yep, Michaela,
Awesome.
thank you, and Mr. Sullivan for allowing us to be a part of this particular series. And we'd be more than glad to participate on any future series that you have.
All right. Thank you both so much. And feel free to register for our newsletter to stay up to date with all of our webinars and startup series activity. Thank you, everyone. Have a good afternoon.
Okay, bye-bye.